This is a bonus episode of Garden Variety, a podcast from IPR and Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. I'm Charity Nebbe. When temperatures get cool, some insects go looking for warm spaces, and sometimes they wind up in our homes. Most people don't love that, but insects probably don't love how humans consistently destroy their habitat. Habitat loss is the number one threat to biodiversity. Entomologist Zach Shum, director of the Iowa State University Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic, has seen this firsthand. Zach, here's one for you. Cindy near Ames writes, have Asian lady beetles reduced the numbers of native ladybugs, and have brown marmorated stink bugs reduced the numbers of native stink bugs? I really like native insects, and as a senior Iowan, it's distressing to see fewer insects in general than I used to see. I have a follow-up question to this, but let's start with just those species. Have those species that are not native reduced the native?
This is related to mentioning earlier that the term invasive is kind of a loaded question because things like the Asian ladybird beetle, they have beneficial qualities to them and that they still eat aphids and other things that we consider plant pests, just like all the native species. However, there is some evidence, at least as far as I'm aware, I'm not an expert on every species out there, that they do outcompete some native species for habitat and resources. So for Asian lady beetle, that is the case as far as I'm aware. For things like brown marmorated stink bug, we don't really see them having an impact on any other stink bug species as far as I know. They are, taking advantage of, and they're more of a crop pest, so they're feeding on agricultural commodities, and we don't have a ton of native species of stink bugs that are severe pests in agriculture with some, again, there's always some exceptions to that. So it really depends on the species, but if you really dive into the literature on invasion ecology, most of the time, new non-native species in new places increases biodiversity because they rarely cause extinction of native species. So again, it's just like, it's such a complicated conversation. But in general, like the Asian ladybird beetle is more of a concern for outcompeting natives in this particular case. Brown marmorated stink bug, they're kind of just coexisting with a lot of the other species without much impact as far as I'm aware.
So my follow-up, though, is about prevalence of insects. We know we've destroyed so much habitat, and of course, by spraying pesticides, we have also killed off a lot of insects over the years. I think about what windshields used to look like when I was a kid, and you would drive at night, and then you'd have to scrape all those insects off to be able to see out of your windshield. And it's really different now. What do we know about the insect population?
So in general, everything is related to habitat loss. Habitat loss is the number one cause for biodiversity loss on the planet. So as we lose more habitat, everything in general, again, generally speaking, there's always exceptions, is being negatively impacted by that to some extent. So as we lose habitat, that's reducing biodiversity and then abundance of different species on the grand scheme of things. And over time, that's going to result in things like less insects on your windshield. So everything generally, in quotation marks, everything is going to be impacted by that, whether it's a non-native or a native. If that particular species is losing habitat, there's going to be fewer of them long term. It just depends on, is a non-native, for example, coming over and, being in a niche or a niche, whatever you want to call it, that isn't currently filled by another species. So maybe some non-natives come in and have more habitat because nothing else is using that particular habitat. So it's such a loaded question. We could have 10 sessions on that and not get through a tenth of it. So,
well, and I don't mind not washing my windshield, but it does worry me. I think, this is a significant visible difference that I can see. And it feels concerning.
One of the things that got me into conservation biology is my dad used to take me to a business park that he worked at, and it was near this old secondary growth forest that was, I don't know, maybe like several acres. I don't know how big it was. And they eventually clear-cut that to just put in more buildings for the business park. And I used to go there and collect all these giant silk moths there, like Luna moths and Polyphemus moth. Those like giant, 5-inch plus moths. And after they cut down that area of forest, I never found one there again, ever. And that's what got me really interested in conservation biology and ended up kind of going into invasive species because that's where I just ended up going just naturally.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's very concerning over long periods of time, and anybody that's paying attention, I think, is noticing for sure.
For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. Find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe.